Alright guys, we're going to take a look at how to solve a quadratic equation. So I know that this is a quadratic equation because right here I see that it is raised to the second power. So I know when solving quadratic equations that I can solve them two different ways really that we've learned in class. One way is by factoring and the other way is by using the quadratic formula. If I look at all my possible answer choices, I see that they either contain radicals or they contain I. So that tells me that the quadratic formula is something that I'm going to have to use for this problem. I also know that in order to use the quadratic formula, I have to have it in standard form. And standard form means that it is in order by degree. So to the second, to the first, and then no p at all. So in order to do that, I'm going to need to take this 5 and I'm going to need to minus it in order to zero it out. But what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Okay, so this one has zeroed out. So now I have, oops, I'm sorry, I wrote the wrong number there. All right, so now I have 5p squared plus 2p plus 10 is equal to 0. Okay, so now that it's in standard form, I now know that I can use the quadratic formula, which is, the quadratic formula is x is equal to opposite b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. In order to use the quadratic formula, I obviously need to know what my a, my b, and my c is. So my a is going to be 5. So a is equal to 5. And I know it's positive because it's out in the front and there is no negative sign there. So by default, that makes it positive. Okay, so my next thing I have to do is I have to identify my b term. And I see that my b is positive 2. So b is equal to positive 2. And I see that my c is equal to 10. And again, it's positive because I take the sign that's in front of it. All right, so now I'm going to go over and I'm going to plug these things in. So x is equal to opposite b plus or minus the square root b squared, and I want you to notice that I put that in parentheses, we'll come back to that, minus 4 times 5 times c, which is 10, all over 2a, so all over 2 times 5. Okay, so I can't type this into the calculator all as one big long fraction. My calculator is going to give me an error and it's going to tell me that I can't do it. So I have to do it in segments. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece right here, which is called the discriminant, and I'm going to type it into the calculator. And I want you to notice that while I'm doing it, I am putting those parentheses in there. That is very important that you do. If you do not put the parentheses in there, you could end up getting the wrong answer. So I'm typing in my numbers, and what I see is I see that I have negative 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 196 all over 2 times 5, which is 10. Okay, so now I can do a little bit of process elimination here. Because what I know is that because I have this negative sign right here, that tells me that I'm going to be able to take out an I. Because the square root of negative 1 is equal to I. Right, sorry, I had a little tablet issue there. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my calculator and I'm going to use my calculator to help me figure out what the square root of 196 is. Okay, so I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to type in 196 and then I'm going to divide it by x. And this is actually a really neat trick. So then I'm going to go to second table and I'm going to scroll through my perfect squares in order to see which ones I can use. Okay, so I see that I can use 4. 4 times 49. I'm going to see if there's a bigger one and see, just if that works out. So I've got 9 and 21.778. That doesn't work. So I'm continuing to scroll down. There's 16. I've got 16 and 12.25. That doesn't work. I'm going to continue to scroll. I see another even number, but it's not a perfect square. So I'm just continuing to scroll down. There's 36. It doesn't work. I'm going to try a couple more and then I'm going to stop. So there's 49. Oh, 49 and 4, that's the one that I already had. So I know that I can stop there because I have found my number. So basically, if I know that this right here is the square root of 4 times the square root of 49, I'm going to use that to rewrite my answer. So I've got x is equal to 2 plus or minus. I know that the square root of 4 is 2 and the square root of 49 is 7. And I know that 2 times 7 is 14. And then don't forget your I, all over 10. Okay, so I am almost done. The last thing I have to do is I have to figure out which answer choice is it. I've already decided that I can't use A because A doesn't have an I in it, and I really need that I to be in my answer for it to be correct. And again, I can't just type it in the calculator because if I type it in the calculator, my calculator is going to tell me error. So I'm looking for a number that all of these guys have in common. And one of the first things that I notice is that they're divisible by 2. Because I know that this is 2 times 1, and this is 2 times 7, and this is 2 times 5. So if I divide by 2, I'm left with x is equal to -1 plus or minus 7i over 5. So I'm going to come over and I'm going to look at my answer choices, and I see that C is my correct answer choice.